Margaret Kuhlman here of Soul Astrology. Hello. I've been listening to other astrologers talking about this new moon, and I think my task is to simplify. Firstly, I used the planets that we all know about, rather than the added asteroids and more distant planets that are being discovered. And in these charts that Howard, my son, puts up for me, we take no account of ascendant or midheaven because they are entirely dependent on where you are on the earth. These charts consist of the signs with the major planets in them, and the aspects that I use are all multiples of 30 degrees rather than any others. Each sign has 30 degrees. It's a simplification of possibilities. So what we get is like a portrait of the moment of the new and full moon, but drawn with sweeping, simple lines rather than detail and shading. What strikes me first about this new moon chart is how all the planets and sun and moon are included in the trine between Venus and Uranus. And it's almost exact, that trine, almost exactly 120 degrees between them, and so very strong in its influence. It's an interesting combination, Venus in Capricorn being the responsible side of how we relate to each other, being very much about the love of the rules of nature, blossom into the beauty that we see, and the incredible usefulness, the food that is produced that keeps us alive, the way that our bodies are. They work. Scientists are finding out how they work, but the life, energy that flows through all of it, there is a beauty somehow in the simplicity of the life force itself. And at the other end of that trine, the blue line, Uranus in Taurus. That could be a detached view of nature, of Earth itself, detachment from the body, which gives a clearer picture. But it's perhaps more about changes. When we stay attached to something, it's difficult for it to change in a healthy way. Change needs to come about through the movement of life, through everything. And we never know what it is that needs to be moving in its relationship with other things. So we need to be able to let go of any fixed attachments that we have, so that natural growth can slide and move, swirl about, and become its next form. The link between the Venus and Uranus is saying, let us do this in love of it all, rather than fear of it all. The error that we can make in the Capricorn side of ourselves is the feeling we should be able to control it. Because we can see how things happen, we have that next step mentally which thinks that we should be able to make it happen the way we want it to happen. Being able to see how things happen is like being given the God's view of life. It's a gift to us to know these things or see these things. It's not a bunch of tools to interfere. So perhaps Venus is bringing an appreciation of the extraordinariness of change on the material level. With Jupiter making his way now quickly through Taurus, we are also concerned with the changes being growthful, expansive, And Jupiter has that sextile. Again, it's almost exact, 60 degrees to Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is the capacity to manifest. In Pisces, we're looking more at the spiritual or etheric side of life. So it's more as though it's the principle of manifestation, coming straight from the spiritual need or purpose. Also in Pisces, there is Neptune, who's been there for quite a few years now, close to the end, making more sextiles, these green lines to the end of Capricorn, still connecting with Pluto, even though Pluto is now in Aquarius. The connection is still there, but particularly the connection is to Mars and Venus. Neptune, who dissolves everything we know, dissolving definitions, dissolving meanings, all into spirit, oneness, where there is nothing to be said. Spirit itself, I like to think of it from our perspective as the angelic realms, because we do like to have a bit of definition in order to think at all. It's like the great angelic realms connecting in to the Mars and Venus, bringing spiritual responsibility. Saturn, of course, rules Capricorn, and coming through Pisces for this couple of years, it's very much about spiritual responsibility. That is to say, owning up to being spirit and operating from that perspective. It doesn't feel like responsibility when you do that. It feels natural. It feels like, why would you do anything else? Anything else would be destructive of the beauty, the system, growth, life. So it's a kind of innate responsibility, if you like. The trouble with thinking of it as responsibility is that from a sort of earthly and smaller point of view, it feels like a weight on something that you don't actually have to do, but that is imposed on you. From a spiritual perspective, it's not an imposition. It's simply what is. We're being offered the chance to see this. Mercury in Aquarius, our thinking, it's as though we've just absorbed that actually things are all in the process of transformation as the Mercury went over Pluto, and we're trying to see how, again I'm afraid it is how to interfere to make this transformation the way we would like it to be. In the process, being at loggerheads with Jupiter, who's growing, the Earth changing, surging about within itself. There is no interference to be made. And of course, when you have that 90-degree line, the red line, the square between two planets, they are in connection with each other. They are relating. They just have a discomfort. It's as though two gear wheels are trying to flatten together to change the speed of the vehicle. And it's the mind is one of them. We've been thinking that certain fixed way, Aquarius is fixed ideas. You get them in a particular position and then everything else has to match that, go into it or be thrown out. The downside of Aquarius. Our mind searching for stability has been searching for a specific result that will work. And there is Jupiter in Taurus, the earth changing and growing. Our bodies endeavouring to change and receive the energy of life that's going through in a different way. The nervous system being thoroughly bombarded by the electricity of the universe, or whatever the energy is. Our nervous system having to grow, and in order for these two discs to connect, because growth has the upper hand. Our understanding has got to connect to what is going on, rather than what we would like to be going on. It's a continuation of this as a time for not knowing how, not knowing what, but going by the feel of how things are, letting the actual physical reality teach us moment by moment as we go along. With Chiron so close to the North Node still, slowly making his way through Aries, and the North Node slowly backing, because it's all, generally speaking, always retrograde, they're coming together. There is a tremendous focus on individual healing, which starts, of course, by actually being the individual that you are, which takes me to the full moon chart, where the retrograde movement of the North Node has taken it across Chiron. That moment of exactness is in the first half of the month. From new to full moon, tremendous healing of individual. Aries is ruled by Mars, and during that same period Mars has shifted from the end of Capricorn, energizing all the collapse of our practical systems of life, over Pluto itself as it went into Aquarius, and by the full moon it's moved quite a few degrees, and during this same period Venus has been moving over the same territory and has just touched the Mars. There is Mars and Venus conjunct, the coming together of the masculine and feminine energy patterns, coming together of a desire to relate with energy in the new way which Aquarius is introducing, where we love each other enough to give each other space to be the way we each are. If we could just do that, there would be an end to war. And so at this time of the full moon, we see in the square to Jupiter perhaps our complete inability to do this, because of where we are, the structure of our bodies, the fact that we haven't actually become this Aquarian ideal, and yet we can see how it might be. There's a frustration there, but we need to let it be. Seeing is enough for the time being. We can't unsee this once we've realized. I think the best plan is to know that it's on the way and to make no further rules about how that should be, how that should come about. And certainly not worry. If we find ourselves worrying about how it might turn out, what might happen, we're actually constructing rather frightening futures for ourselves. Worry is the belief that there is no overriding beauty, that love doesn't exist as a force. So let's not go there. The full moon is in Virgo, staring across at the sun, receiving fully the Pisces sun, the awareness of oneness on the spiritual level, while the Virgo moon holds the boundary that we live in, the boundaries of skin to the body, the boundary of bones to give us shape, the rules of nature, of the seasons, of growth, of sustenance, nurture. All these are necessary within the material expression of spirit. And the sun in Pisces has Mercury on one side and Saturn on the other, like a pair of wings to the light. The knowledge of spirit and the rules of spirit. This is a dichotomy, an opposite, a tug of war, except that in this chart Jupiter has the fine link, sextile and trine, to both ends. Jupiter in Taurus. This is definitely a time for focusing on the health of the physical in every area of our life. Focusing with appreciation, curiosity, support. To be inwardly in good shape. To be at peace with the physical. Relaxed, breathing, allowing joy to arise. It's like gentle waves on the sea, the rise of joy bringing peace, and the peace enabling the next rise of joy. And so we breathe. This is the energy that supports growth into the future in the best way possible, the smoothest, the kindest. And each of us has the capacity to tune into this in ourselves. It's part of the human condition. Let's make this month about being as much at peace with things and with ourselves as we possibly can. Moments here and there. Moments of appreciation, being key points of waking up to the present. It doesn't take a moment to appreciate something. The way the light falls on a piece of furniture, the steam rising from the coffee cup, the way the petals of a flower seem to open before your eyes, the smell of the air, whatever it may be at the time. Our senses connect us. Let us appreciate how they work and what they tell us. This experience is expansive, like bubbles of energy, expanding, connecting naturally. I think this is what's happening. So let's keep it simple and do the best we can. This is how we meet each other. Many blessings. Thank you. Dear rejected soul, in truth, you can never be rejected. On a soul level, there is nowhere to reject to. In spirit, there are no boundaries. All is bright light or bright dark. You are loved just as you are, because all that you think might be beyond lovable is illusory. You may feel grief about letting the illusory go. But once you see clearly, without those shadows obscuring the truth, there is nothing to grieve for. Nothing is lost.